Be me, Alex, 37, senior systems architect at a mid-sized tech firm. Been here a decade, built half the infrastructure they rely on. My office is a quiet corner in the server room, surrounded by the hum of progress. Not a people person, but I make systems sing. My reputation is for bulletproof stability and finding the impossible edge case. I'm the one they call when the big projects inevitably hit a wall, and I always deliver. Overlooked, sure, but indispensable. My world is logic, efficiency, and elegant solutions. I live for the challenge of untangling digital spaghetti. Be not me, Chad, 42, the newly minted vice president of digital transformation, freshly poached from a consulting firm known more for flashy presentations than functional deliverables. He exudes an aura of self-importance that practically glows in the dark. He's all tailored suits, buzzwords, and an inexplicable conviction that his opinions are facts. Chad arrived with a mandate to modernize our core data platform, a project I designed, a project that was crucial for the company's future, and a project with a $50 million budget attached. From day one, he treated the entire department as his personal fiefdom and the budget as his ATM. Chad's first move was to rebrand the existing, perfectly functional project as Project Phoenix, his grand vision for the company. He immediately insisted on replacing my carefully selected, secure, and robust cloud providers with a new, unproven vendor he personally vouched for. This vendor, conveniently, offered lavish kickbacks in the form of consulting fees to Chad's former firm. I flagged the security vulnerabilities, the cost overruns, and the performance degradation this switch would entail. My carefully documented risk assessment was dismissed with a wave of his hand and a condescending smile. Alex, he'd said, sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet of innovation. The massive injustice was clear. He was actively sabotaging a critical company initiative for personal gain and doing it under the guise of progress. The pattern of entitled, outrageous behavior began almost immediately. Chad's initial foray into innovation involved diverting a significant portion of the security budget, originally allocated for advanced threat detection and encryption, into a gamified user experience portal. This portal, he explained in an all-hands meeting, would revolutionize employee engagement and unlock synergistic potential. In reality, it was a glorified intranet with animated avatars, developed by his buddy's startup for triple the market rate. I tried to warn him. In a private meeting, I laid out the stark implications of gutting our security. Chad, I said, my voice low and even, this project handles all our customer data. Without the proper safeguards, we're not just looking at a data breach. We're looking at regulatory fines, class action lawsuits, and a potential collapse of trust. The proposed portal offers zero functional benefit to the core project and actively siphons funds from critical areas. He leaned back in his expensive chair, a smirk playing on his lips. Alex, your perspective is charmingly traditional. We're disruptors now. We move fast, we break things. And frankly, your team is dragging its feet. You need to embrace agile transformation, not just security paranoia. He then suggested that if I couldn't get with the program, perhaps I wasn't the right fit for his forward-thinking vision. It was a direct threat, a thinly veiled warning to fall in line or face the consequences. His behavior escalated. 2 months later, a major system outage occurred, not because of a security breach, but because the new innovative vendor chosen by Chad botched a routine database migration. Millions of dollars in transactions were held up for an entire day, customer service lines were jammed, and the company's stock took a hit. In the ensuing crisis meeting, Chad, instead of taking responsibility, pointed directly at my team. My department, under Alex's leadership, failed to adequately stress test the new infrastructure. This is a clear indicator of their resistance to change and lack of proactive engagement with modern solutions. He spun a tale of my team's obstructionism and legacy thinking, holding back his visionary progress. My data, which clearly showed that Chad had personally overridden multiple warnings about the vendor's inadequacies and rushed the rollout, was conveniently ignored. I sat there, taking notes, watching him weave his web of lies, my anger a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I just said, "We identified these risks, VP, all documented and reported through standard channels." He just dismissed it with another wave. The final straw came during the quarterly board review. Chad presented Project Phoenix as his brainchild, showcasing the flashy gamified portal while barely mentioning the core data platform. He confidently declared the project ahead of schedule and under budget, a blatant lie. He specifically highlighted a feature that my lead developer, a brilliant but shy woman named Sarah, had conceptualized and built almost entirely on her own. He then publicly congratulated Sarah for her small contribution to his vision, effectively belittling her groundbreaking work while taking full credit. To add insult to injury, he announced a new vendor partnership, another one of his cronies for executive synergy coaching, a program that cost nearly $1 million and had zero relevance to our business. He then announced that, due to budgetary constraints, he would be cutting funding for my team's ongoing training and certifications, essential for keeping our skills current and our systems secure. It was a direct attack on our professional development, a deliberate move to cripple my team's ability to function, all to pad his own pockets and ego. He looked directly at me during that announcement, a smug, triumphant look on his face. He thought he had won. That meeting was my breaking point. Not only was he destroying the company's future and stealing my team's recognition, he was now actively attempting to render my entire department obsolete, threatening our livelihoods. My job was on the line, my team's careers were on the chopping block, and all for Chad's ludicrous synergy coaching and useless portals. I walked out of that boardroom a different man. The calculated patience was still there, but now it was laced with a chilling resolve. The problem was no longer just a professional annoyance. It was a personal affront that demanded retribution. Chad had dug his own grave, and I was just going to help him into it. I stopped reacting and started plotting. My master plan began with a deep dive into the labyrinthine world of corporate policies, vendor contracts, and internal audit procedures. I knew the company's systems better than anyone, certainly better than Chad. He thought he was clever by routing his dubious expenditures through a network of shell companies and vague, consulting agreements. But I knew where the digital breadcrumbs would lead. First, I identified the loopholes. Chad's new innovative vendor contracts were intentionally vague, allowing for variable hourly rates and performance-based bonuses that inflated costs without clear justification. He exploited a clause in our purchasing policy that allowed VPs to approve expenditures up to $5 million without direct board oversight, as long as it was within approved project budgets. His trick was to create multiple smaller related contracts, each just under the $5 million threshold, effectively bypassing stricter controls. He'd also misclassified certain expenses, moving them from project development to operational overhead, which had less scrutiny. It was amateur hour embezzlement, but effective enough against busy, trusting executives. I began laying traps. Being the lead architect, I had access to every log, every access credential, every financial transaction record related to Project Phoenix. I wrote a series of custom scripts designed to cross-reference all incoming invoices from Chad's preferred vendors against actual delivered work, market rates, and the original project scope. These scripts ran silently in the background, building a comprehensive ledger of every discrepancy, every inflated charge, every unauthorized expenditure. I established a secure, encrypted off-site server entirely separate from company infrastructure, but using only public domain tools, making it untraceable to me personally, where I meticulously duplicated and timestamped every relevant email, every Slack message, every signed document related to Chad's activities. Crucially, I noticed Chad was using a private email address for some of his more dubious communications, but occasionally slipped and used his company account, especially when confirming official transactions or giving directions to my team. I focused on those slips. I also leveraged the company's existing and underutilized internal whistleblowing policy. I knew the chief compliance officer, a by-the-book veteran named Alina, hated corporate fraud more than anything. I started drafting anonymous tips, each meticulously detailed, pointing to specific contracts and dates without revealing my source, sending them from various public VPNs to Alina's secure internal email, ensuring they were untraceable. I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was preparing an unignorable case that would automatically trigger a full-scale forensic audit. I created a dead man switch, a set of pre-scheduled, automated emails containing key pieces of damning evidence, programmed to send to multiple board members and external auditors if my network access or the off-site server went dark for more than 48 hours. Chad thought he was untouchable. He was merely building a digital prison, and I was installing the locks. The trap was sprung during Chad's next major project update to the executive leadership team, including the CEO and CFO. Alina, the chief compliance officer, had already launched her initial internal inquiry based on my anonymous tips, and she was present in the room, looking particularly grim. Chad was midway through another boastful monologue about synergistic innovation when Alina quietly interjected. "Excuse me, VP," she said, her voice cutting through the room's polite applause. "I have some follow-up questions regarding the Project Phoenix budget and vendor allocations." Chad, visibly irritated, chuckled. "Of course, Alina, always the details. Everything is above board, perfectly aligned with our strategic objectives." Alina opened a folder. "My team has identified some anomalies. Specifically, a pattern of invoicing discrepancies from your innovative vendors, totaling approximately $7 million over the last 6 months alone. Could you explain the rationale behind these consulting fees paid to Nova Solutions, a company where your brother-in-law is listed as CEO?" Chad's confident smile faltered. "Alina, that's absurd. Nova Solutions provides crucial niche expertise. My brother-in-law's involvement is purely coincidental. They're the best in the business." "Really?" Alina asked, her gaze unwavering. "Because our internal audit shows that many of these consulting hours coincide with dates your brother-in-law was on vacation in the Bahamas, according to his own social media. And the niche expertise appears to be standard open-source code repackaged with a 300% markup." Chad stammered. "This is an attack, a smear campaign by old guard elements resistant to change." He pointed a finger at me, sitting quietly at the back of the room. "Alex and his team have been nothing but roadblocks." That was my cue. I calmly stood up. "With all due respect, VP," I said, my voice cutting through his bluster, "my team has followed every directive. However, due to concerns about data integrity and financial transparency, I've been maintaining a parallel ledger of all project expenditures and system modifications." I projected a screen onto the main monitor. It was a clean, crisp spreadsheet. Each row detailed a transaction, a date, a vendor, and an approval. And right next to it, a column titled Original Budget Allocation and Actual Spend. The disparities were staggering. "Here," I continued, pointing to a highlighted section. "This shows the redirection of funds from core security infrastructure, line item 4 billion, directly into the gamified user experience portal, line item 7C, which, as you can see, has no direct benefit to the primary project deliverable. This was approved by you on record." Chad's face went from indignant red to a sickly pale. "That's doctored. I never approved that." "Funny," I said, my eyes locking with his, "because here are the authenticated audit logs from the financial system, showing your digital signature and time-stamped approval for each transfer. And here are the email chains from your company account, explicitly directing these reallocations." I clicked a few times, and the emails popped up, clear as day, with Chad's signature block. And here is my original risk assessment, which you dismissed, detailing the exact security vulnerabilities created by these diversions, directly leading to the outage last month. He began to sweat, his eyes darting frantically around the room. The CEO and CFO were stone-faced. Alina looked satisfied. Chad tried one last desperate maneuver. "This is a vendetta. Alex is a disgruntled employee trying to undermine my authority." "No, Chad," Alina interjected. "This is evidence. And based on the severity of the discrepancies, the board has authorized a full, independent forensic audit. We already have external auditors on standby. They'll be reviewing everything, starting with your entire department's financials and all related party transactions. They'll also be looking at the vendor you chose for your personal synergy coaching." Her gaze was chillingly direct. "Your access to company systems has been revoked, effective immediately. Your badge will no longer grant you entry. Security will escort you out." Chad opened his mouth, but no words came out. His arrogance had shattered. He finally understood he had lost, completely. The fallout was swift and brutal. Chad was escorted out that same day, his tailored suit rumpled, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. The board, presented with my meticulously compiled evidence and the findings of Alina's preliminary investigation, had no choice. He was fired for cause, his severance package nullified. The external forensic audit uncovered even more layers of his scheme, revealing not just the $7 million I had tracked, but an additional $5 million in fraudulent expenses hidden in other departments under his nominal oversight. He faced immediate civil lawsuits from the company for breach of contract and fiduciary duty, and a criminal investigation was initiated by federal authorities for wire fraud and embezzlement. His reputation was utterly destroyed, his consulting firm blacklisted, and his visionary brand was irrevocably tainted. He was stripped bare, left with nothing but the consequences of his own hubris. Update 1. 3 weeks later, Chad tried to sue the company for wrongful termination. His lawyers, clearly ill-informed about the depth of the evidence against him, quickly withdrew the case after seeing our discovery documents. The company quietly reinstated funding for my team's training and certifications. No questions asked. Sarah, my lead developer, received a promotion and a significant bonus, publicly acknowledged by the CEO for her unparalleled contributions to the Project Phoenix core platform. Chad's brother-in-law's innovative company was dissolved, and all their assets seized pending the outcome of the federal investigation. Update 2. 6 months later, Chad was formally indicted on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. His name appeared in every major financial news outlet, always accompanied by unflattering pictures and scathing summaries of his downfall. His house, his luxury car, and his various investments were all seized to pay restitution. He was facing a potential decade in federal prison. The gamified user experience portal was quietly taken offline. I heard he was last seen begging a former colleague for a loan outside the courthouse, looking significantly less tailored. Update 3. 1 year later, Project Phoenix, now renamed Project Evergreen, my original internal code name, was successfully launched, on time and under budget, thanks to my team's hard work and the restoration of proper security protocols. The company's data integrity was restored, and we received industry accolades for our robust security. My department quietly received a substantial budget increase, and I was promoted to Director of Enterprise Architecture. My office is still quiet, still surrounded by the hum of servers. As for Chad, I saw a headline pop up on an obscure local news site. He'd pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and was sentenced to 3 years in a minimum security federal prison. The article mentioned he was now working in the prison library, alphabetizing books. I imagine he's still trying to find a way to synergize the Dewey Decimal System. Some people never learn.